Okay, everyone. I think everyone's had time to watch the first video. Let me switch to make sure if I can see Tim. Tim, you still there? Tim, you can hear me, right? Okay. All right. I've just. Yes, please do. Okay, so Tav is going to help me make sure this channel runs smoothly, and I should have set that up beforehand. I'm sorry, Tav. So Tim has posed the three questions for the first session. Certainly, the first one is an important one for me. Are there key aspects missing from the coalition vision? And I think we should do as much of our session in actual chat mode as opposed to broadcast mode. That we're all on the same page. Tim and I are going to sort of stay in visual contact with everyone because there may be people who arrive on this site a little late, and hopefully they'll get the idea that they need to jump into this chat room, and that's where the real action is, because that we're on the same playing field, essentially. Starting with the first question, which is what's missing in the vision. There's the three parts that are proposed for the information ecology, and we've got the Innovation Center, we've got the Social Network Catalyst, and we've got the Green Knowledge Trust. And certainly we also start mapping the field and saying who's providing those functions. And I think for each of those functions we probably have multiple sites or multiple efforts, and that's got to be part of our discussion later, is how do different projects and different efforts work together. For example, Apropedia has done a great job of actually starting to consolidate the field, meaning there's many green wikis around, and if you're going to provide content to a green wiki, either you just join one and become part of that community, but the information you're sharing is not going to be provided out on other wikis, and so we have a problem of dividing people's efforts, dividing attention, and those are the two things that we want to avoid. If I have to put the same content in multiple spaces, or if I'm someone searching for content, I don't really want to have to search multiple spaces. Can you, Cesare, can you say more about the hidden idea please? I just see that in the chat, so I want to react a little bit to the chat. And anyone who's watching and not aware that there's a chat taking place, please log in through the web IRC or your own IRC client. And for everyone who is in the chat, I would recommend that if your statement or question is addressed to a particular person, you start typing that person's name and tab it. That way, the notion being that we want you to talk. If you're talking to the whole room, then you don't have to preface it with someone's name. If it's a question that's directed to someone, certainly start with their name in the chat room. If you want to refer to them, don't start with their names. Refer to them in the sentence. But it'll just be clear that if we need to react to it, if it's a statement for everyone, or if this is just a matter of this is a directed question that you want someone to expand on something. So you want us, Tav asked me to emphasize to everyone watching, who may be watching who didn't join the IRC or who may be in multiple IRC rooms, that the main conversation is happening in the Movement Camp channel. One thing for me, which is not necessarily about how the film presents a certain set of functions in naming the 3 platforms or the 3 parts of the platform, but the technical dimension of should there be only one site for each of these, or is the deeper question of interoperability and the possibility of flows of information, flows of data between multiple sites, so that if I provide content into a space like Wikipedia, Apropedia, wouldn't it be great that there were multiple windows into that content? If you look on our blog section, you can listen to the conversation I had with Pamela McLean yesterday, and we were addressing some of the digital inclusion questions and the ICT for development questions. And one of the frustrations for many people, this is not really about Apropedia, but any site, is just if it's encyclopedic in scope, having another way of having a window into it can be very useful. So if we have an ecosystem where information is sort of another layer for our information action ecology, having multiple windows becomes easier, and each site and each community can sort of have perhaps a trust network of data and information they share, and it doesn't have to be everything going into the same, all information going into the same lake, let's say, but us being able to reference the whole internet. All right, I'm rambling a little bit because this is kind of a strange and new experience. Hello, Suresh. I'm glad you could join us. Suresh is part of the Open Collab project. It's great to see so many familiar people here. We've probably all been working on similar questions or approaching similar questions from very different angles, and that's sort of one of the challenges we have here. I just want to keep an eye on the schedule of what's going to happen next. So we've got another hour before the next official session. Is that correct, Tim? So in terms of, we've got a Meetup Everywhere account, and I think if we can have face-to-face engagement on these topics, and that may be a way to start convening local face-to-face events. I'd also love to see times where more of us could gather who don't live in the same area. Yes, Suresh raises some very important points about trust in online context, and I guess this also goes to networks of trust. And no, it's still in development, and we have actually Tav is the principal person of the Espion group who's behind Espra. And at some point, we'd love to have well, from my point of view, I think it's less valuable to depend upon any one site or platform coming out, but for us who are interested in different platforms to see what can we learn from the different platforms, and how can we bring certain platforms into alignment. What are the best elements of different spaces that we've created and different tools, and figure out how they can feed back onto other projects. And so this moves us strongly in the direction of open culture as an open source development, because if you've got a platform that is in a proprietary nature, it becomes more difficult for you to for others to implement what you've achieved, or they have to reverse engineer something. And this is all, I'm trivializing it somewhat by the way I'm conveying it, because there's another dimension here which the more business-minded of you and would certainly want to emphasize that if you're putting together a project, it takes a lot of work, a lot of investment, and how do you sustain that? How do we sustain the work that's necessary to develop the tools and platforms we need? And I think for some of us who are on the open culture side, some of us have a more or less flat approach to things and are reticent to create structures that we may want or need, and may have serious questions about other structures that others are trying to implement. And there's good reason to be suspicious, but if we're all suspicious of each other, it makes it challenging for us to work together. So this plays into the whole trust question that Suresh is raising, which I think is not entirely, it doesn't always get solved by the face-to-face space. And even in a face-to-face meeting, some of us have more interest, tolerance in process-oriented questions, and others want to focus on what they think is the practical business that they came there for. So in open stewardship, which the first statement was provided on the coalition blog, open stewardship, I would suggest, is kind of a glue pattern for open culture that allows us to start figuring out and navigating this space. Yes, I'd also, when we ask the question of, as Suresh asks, of how to get leaders to work together, we may want to, I want to sort of parse the question of what is the difference between leadership and stewardship. And I think they may just be two different emphases on the same thing, and sometimes I think being a truly good leader is also being a truly good steward. and vice versa, even though they have a somewhat different emphasis. I'm just catching up a little on the chat. So Suresh, is it become more realistic when we're working with leaders and visionaries because we're according them that additional status and I guess there's power with status? A friend of mine, Arthur Brock, has a model called that he or an approach that he calls dynamic alignment, and it's kind of a contrast with consensus approaches where we all have to come into deep agreement on the semantics and values, and that ends up being a very long process. And may be interminable and may never arrive at agreement. So, but with dynamic alignment, we can find out the things that any number of parties are willing to do, and those who find what they're willing to do in alignment with each other can proceed. Anyway, so that's just Arthur Brock, a simplification of Arthur Brock's notion of dynamic alignment. I don't know if he originates it, but he's the one who first communicated it to me. Arthur is one of the metacurrency people, and I see that we have is Eric there? Eric Harris-Brown? And I saw Fernando was also on Skype recently. Maybe she's not here at the moment, but these are questions that have come up many times in metacurrency, and I think there's strong alignment between metacurrency and the trust maps question, also the question of forming groups that are going to work together and how we're going to support those groups. Or rather sustain the work that needs to be done, and at the same time how do we keep those groups as open as possible so that others can find their way in? The issue of whether we support a given effort or structure has relation to whether or not we find our place in it. Does a particular project have a space for us, or are we just users of the tool that they're going to provide, which could be okay. If they are good stewards of the tool that they're creating, that might be okay. But what will also determine what policies change for that site? I'm mixing all these different things of project, effort, tool, platform, website, and clearly there are differences in these things, but there's still a way in which we can treat them generally as either vessels or other tools that need our attention and need us to attain a sort of critical reflection on. I don't really want to be in a monologue mode, but I'm also, adapting myself to paying attention to what's going on in the chat room, and I think if we take the chat room as more central and me as just chatter, that would be happy for me. So, Tim, do you have thoughts on this? And yes. Perhaps this leadership thing is deeply entangled with our question of just structure and the ability to establish structures. I mean, it's a question of, we say fluid leadership, it's a question of, do we feel freedom to change the structures that we have? If a structure is not satisfactory, can we reconfigure it, refactor it? Can we build a new one that is more satisfactory? And then what happens when we do that? And it's a different attitude than there's the leader and there are the people that follow the leader. And I think that's somewhat what Tim is getting at. And it's also something that if you don't feel that you have a seat at the table with the leaders, quote unquote, then what role do you have? What say do you have? But on the other hand, you know, if you're not satisfied with something, are you really ready for the conversation that the so-called leaders are engaged in? I don't mean leaders at the highest level, but the leaders of a particular project. They've invested a lot of time coming to some, if there's a group, they've had to work out a bunch of things among themselves over time. So TAV offers a means of reframing this question as what's needed to enable facilitatory leadership to really thrive. And I suppose I do like that question, but I'd also I'd introduce another tension or contrast between leading a project or group versus trying to offer leadership and stewardship of a field. And the field is a general space that we all share, whether it's an issue field or our total environment or the planet, let's say. Whereas if you have responsibility to your group and you're trying to lead your project, yes, Tim. Yeah, that'd be fine. That's fine. Oh, no, you're on. No, you're on. Well, so is he going to go on live with you, or is he going to go on live with me? Okay, so that means, sure. You have to send him the password. Send him the password and username that you're using when as soon as you log off, and then he'll just log into that, and I'll tell him which panel to go to. But, okay. All right. Got it. Yes. No, not over the chat. If you. Let me. I will send him the information. Okay. But you need to log off, Tim. All right, there we go. Let me make sure I got the. Tim, not only do you have to log off, you have to sign out. Okay? And Suresh, I just sent you some information in Skype chat direct, and it's the password and login information for the Justin TV account. So you'll go live in a second. Tim has to not only sign off, he has to log out. So I hope he's hearing me. And then we'll hear from Suresh in a moment. And if anyone else wants to take the stage, but Tav or Tim or myself know directly. Holy moly, we've got a lot of people in here. Oh, that's the wrong room. We don't have as many people as that. That's good. Okay, a little bit overwhelming. Emergent facilitatory leadership. So we're waiting for Suresh to come on. Suresh is part of the core group of the Open Collab project. The Open Collab project. Okay. Suresh is not 100% ready. He's happy to come on live in an hour, and that's okay by us. If anyone else wants to take the mic, they're willing to do so. Just they have to hit me up on Skype and add me Tropology, TROPOLOGY, and we will queue you up. Ethan, would you like to go live? Or did you need a shower? I needed a shower because I needed to wake up when I first got started, because I was up way too late trying to figure out some trivial things that are completely irrelevant now that we're actually in this chat. So one of the powerful things for the film, in the film, let's see where he is. Let me help out Suresh for a second. We're just trying to work out helping get Suresh online for broadcast. Okay, I think I see Suresh is. I see the background of. A room, and I see. Yes, this feels a little like Max Headroom right now. And what was the show? Is the show the same name? But I don't hear you at all, Suresh. Well, we use the phrase sometimes build a platform, but that may mean somewhat different things to different people here. I can see a platform as the infrastructure for a particular website, but the internet is also a platform. And if we're designing our separate websites towards greater interoperability, then we leverage the internet platform from its original design principles. I'm just trying to help Suresh still, trying to get him on for broadcasting, but we clearly see an image being broadcast, but I don't see. The camera looks like it's pointing up towards the windows. Okay. Suresh is calling me, but if he calls me, I'm going to be. All right, let's see what happens. Hello, Suresh. Okay. I think aside from not being able to see you, or what? So I'm getting a feedback loop because of these obvious problems. Let me see what I can do. Click in the Justin TV window. Click pause. All right, I'm going to stop broadcasting on my side for a second, then I can hear you.